My name is Mislav. I am the CEO of this startup here, AMPnet. This is a bit of a shill. I'm gonna try to keep it like a more philosophical discussion, but it is a bit of a shill. It's a new thing we're doing, I guess, so keep that in mind. In terms of that, let's get started. So, what am I going to be talking about today? Today, as you've seen at the title of the presentation and the work, this presentation, is we're talking about integrating Web2 services that can consume Web3 data. Which, when you first look at it, it seems very, very simple. It seems very, very, if you're a developer, it might seem even absurdly simple. But we're going to see that there is much more meat to it than you might think at first. And there is much more that we can gain from it if we do it properly than if we do it naively. So, yeah, we're starting with a very cool Latin phrase to keep us fancy like that. It means from many, one. Basically, the idea is I'm going to be promoting unity between the worlds of Web 2 and the worlds of Web 3. So I figured this was a reasonable way to start. So, Web 2. I said home sweet home here because it is. For 99% of the users of the internet, Web 2 is their home. And by home, I mean the place where they feel secure. They feel they know how stuff works. They feel comfortable. So what does this mean? Well, a Web 2 user in a Web 2 world knows how to log in. A Web 2 user in a Web 2 world knows how to consume data. A Web 2 user in a Web 2 world, they know how to use the application. Usually, the user experience has been panned out through 30 years of trial and error, and through, let's say, 30 years of people using it. So, for example, myself, I've got first a computer with an internet access when I was, I don't know, 11. And ever since, I've been using, basically, internet as a Web 2 consumable, and I know how it works. So, this is going to be the running pro. If we're going to do pros and cons, this is going to be the running pro of Web 2. It's familiar. It's something we enjoy using. Sometimes we're frustrated by it, but generally we're so used to it that 90% of us can't even imagine using internet in any different way. You know, just look at the paradigm shift. Maybe I'm running a few slides ahead now, but look at the paradigm shift with logging in with your email and password, logging in with social media, or logging in with MetaMask. There's like this big gap between it, which we'll discuss a bit more. But not everything is amazing in the world of Web 2. In Web 2, we have a single point of failure. And now, some of you who are developers might think, or even not developers who are technically inclined, might think, oh yeah, a server can go down, yeah. Infrastructure can break, a company can leak my data. And these are all single points of failure, but I want you to think a level up, something beyond technology. There's a single point of failure in culture. If a company, let's say Meta or Facebook, decides that it's proper to exploit people's data and their privacy for profit, that's a single point of failure on a company culture aspect that you had no influence on. So you put basically the reputation of, let's say, using a platform up to the people who were providing the platform. Their decisions, their culture, their view of the world has become a single point of failure for their platform. If their platforms become so big that they basically control the entire internet, then their decisions, and they're humans just like us, their single points of failure, their lapse of judgments become our single points of failure and our lapse of judgment, no matter that we didn't have anything to do with it. Web 3 is the brave new world. It's something that nobody knows how it works. So in this room, probably 90%, I'd say, maybe 70%, I don't know what the structure is of the attendees, know how to log in with MetaMask, how to use Uniswap, how to do all these cool and fancy new interesting things. I can assure you that at AMPnet, we have tried to offer DeFi products to the regular person. It went horribly. people are not prepared for the user interface of DeFi. And I'm not talking about, they always say this analogy, oh, could you explain it to your grandma? Of course not, I couldn't ever explain it to my grandma. But I can't explain it to my friends who have a college degree, who are 28, 29, 30 years old, who know how to use the internet, who are gamers, who are people who've been using computers since they were, 5 years old. Explaining to them how to use and interact with Web3 takes a week, at least. If they're smart, it takes a week. If they're dumb, you can't do it. So it's something that we have to take care of. It's something we have to think about. Imagine, we have, 5 billion internet users? That's 5 billion weeks we need to spend. You know how much time that is? I don't, but you could look it up. It's a lot of time. So we don't have 5 billion weeks, obviously. So we need to do something. But there is something very good about Web3. If any one of you have read books by Mr. Taleb, the writer of The Black Swan, has an amazing book called Antifragile, which basically describes systems which, when put under stress, behave better. And I would make a good argument that high-quality blockchain systems, such as Ethereum, for example, are made in this exact way. So the best example we have here is the NFT mint of Yuga Labs from a month ago or something like this, where basically the entire network broke. Like, you couldn't do anything for 5 hours or whatever it costs, $5,000 to do a transaction. And you might think, how is this anti-fragile? It seems extremely fragile that one company can push up the transaction cost like tenfold. No, it's an anti-fragile system. It didn't break. A lot of other systems would break. A lot of other blockchains would break. A lot of centralized servers would break. They couldn't handle the load because they were never meant for the load. Ethereum can handle arbitrary load. Ethereum can handle adversarial actors. You could be the most evil person in the world wanting to break Ethereum. You could have immense resources. You couldn't do it. Why? Because it's built assuming the worst. There is, in the protocol, it's built in to assume that everyone will have the ability to be evil. Everyone will have the ability to try to steal your data, to try to exploit you, to try to control you in some way that you don't want to be controlled. So this is what we do good in blockchain. We assume the worst. And that's what they don't do really good in Web2 world. I mean, the biggest companies now, AWS, Meta, and like Netflix, they do it well because they've got zillions of dollars and like 500 million engineers. But like your average company doesn't do it well. If you're a developer, you know what I'm talking about. If you're a DevOps person, you know even better what I'm talking about. So now we have the chasm. How do we go over the chasm? How do we connect the user-friendliness of Web2 with the anti-fragility and all the other goods? I mean, I just mentioned anti-fragility, but you can like choose your fighter. What do you like about Web3 the most? Like, is it what the previous speaker said about self-sovereign identity? Is it your keys, your coins? Is it whatever you like about crypto? Apply it to a good user interface. This is how we cross the chasm. So, in order to cross the chasm, you just need to prove that you love me. And how do you do that? So I'll give you an example. A normal, let's say, Web2 service has 0 problems querying the blockchain, saying, oh, this address at 0x whatever has 5,000 USDC. I can do it. I don't need any special software to do it. I don't need any special applications to do it. I can just do it. It's very easy. But I don't have proof. I don't know that you own it. How do I know that this person or that person or that person owns the address that's being accessed? So that's the big question. You have to prove that you love me. And who do I love? I love a company like any good capitalist. So I'll get some loyalty points, right? You know, I'll be a good shopper, I'll consume, I'll do my part in, increasing the shareholder value, destroying the planet. I'll act good, I'll do the stuff that's expected. And I'll get some loyalty points, right? And if we assume that I want my loyalty points to be done in a Web3 fashion. I want to have self-custody, I want them to be transferable, I want them to be tradable, all of these interesting things. Now I have to have some way to put them on blockchain. What I'll do, I'll deploy a smart contract, I'll call it the token, loyalty point token, whatever. And then I'll come to the retail store and I'll ask them to consume my data. And yeah, no, it's not gonna work. Because the retail company, your like whatever, H&M or Zara or Nike or Adidas, they're not gonna go through the trouble of implementing a Web3 wallet. They're not gonna be, oh yeah, I'm just gonna import the Web3 object and then I'm gonna call get transaction hash and wait for the cryptographic proof. No, they're gonna want the proof, but they're not gonna go through the trouble of actually doing the technical infrastructure to do it. First of all, they're not that interested in blockchain, trust me. They like when they see NFTs, they see some good promotional materials, that's cool for them, but they're not that interested. And second of all, they don't have the expertise. I think a lot of us tend to underassume how complex blockchain development actually is. Wallet management, all of these fancy things, they don't know how to do it, they can't do it. So we have to play coordination games. You know, all of blockchain was built on coordination games, built on the famous Nash equilibrium. So what do we do here? We have a buyer who wants to prove that they have certain tokens at a certain point in time. We have a dumb consumer, which is the company that is consuming the proof. And we need, you know, in blockchain, it's a dirty world, we need a middleman. So what do we do? How do we get a middleman? And that's basically the point that I was trying to get with all this philosophical mumbo jumbo. We need to have a way to consume my crypto. We need to have a way to provide cryptographic evidence to essentially Web2 people to actually allow them to easily consume any cryptographic proof. So maybe to break it down a little bit, I'm not sure how much sense I'm making. Go back to my 30 hours of not sleeping. But the idea is here. I have an address. The address is me. Whether I am KYC'd or I'm not, the address is me. What's on the address is mine. These are my tokens, these are my NFTs, these are my loyalty points, these are my benefits. I'm Nike or whatever. I have a web shop. I go to a web shop, I click get discount. Nike has crypto tokens. What it does, what we have built essentially, is a solution that takes you to our container website, which takes all the pertinent information from the consumer, so in this case Nike. It provides them to us. We provide the full infrastructure that's needed to actually prove something, whether it's your identity, whether it's your ownership of the tokens, and cryptographically prove it. So cryptographically sign it to prevent all the fancy, you know, man-in-the-middle attacks, etc., etc. And then on the other side, we have a very, very simple Web2 SDK that all these vendors and all these ticketing shops and all these various people who would like to enjoy and participate in the crypto world need to actually consume this data. Now, this is still in development. This presentation was actually made as an exercise to all of you to think about the compromises and all of the things that we're going to need to do to get 5 billion people using blockchain. You know, it's not going to happen if we keep on pretending that MetaMask is a good user interface. It's not going to happen if we pretend that, you know, having 50 different wallet providers is a good user interface. It's not going to happen if we pretend that clicking sign and then waiting 5 minutes for the action to happen is a good user interface. We have to take a step back as a community. Think about what your average internet user, again, not your grandma, your average internet user is willing to accept. How far are they willing to go to use your service? They might not care about self-custody. In fact, I think 100% they don't care about self-custody. They might not care about the anti-fragility of it all. 100%, they don't care about the anti-fragility of it all. They might not care about decentralization. They might not care about any of those things. What they care about is user experience. And if we don't take certain compromises, if we don't take certain steps to minimize the effort that developers and agencies and freelancers and all of these people who are experienced in Web 2 need to do to build functional, production-ready Web3 apps, yeah, I don't think we're going to get 5 billion people using it. That's my presentation. Thank you very much. Yeah, ready for Q&A. Yeah, we have one up.
Wait for the mic.
Can you please raise your hand? When you mentioned the discount code section on a Nike website, were you implying that that is where some type of key would go into instead of a discount code?
No.
Okay.
So the idea was that essentially you would have, let's say in this example, you would just have a button that says apply loyalty tokens, which would take you to a Web3 application that's already, built, already production ready, that Nike didn't have to build themselves, that would generate a cryptographic proof that at this moment in time, you are the owner of this blockchain address, which is a really simple operation for anyone who does blockchain. It's a stupidly simple thing to do. But then it would provide a Web2 friendly way for the Nike website and their developers to consume this data. So yeah.
Thank you.
So in your example, you mentioned that we need to convince consumers to adopt this, but we probably need to consider the businesses as well. So how do you tackle the issue of data? Because every big company wants to keep collecting data, even if it's anonymized, so they can sell better.
Well, of course, there's that. In that case, how I see this initial implementation, we need to handle the obvious use cases first. So we need to handle the use cases. I always say, if you don't have multiple parties that are collaborating on a project together, blockchain makes no sense. If you're gonna have a loyalty program that's just meant for one specific company, it's probably better that they stick to using their own backend. But more and more, we are seeing companies and let's say certain businesses move into this collaborative approach. Specifically with NFTs, we are seeing this movement where some certain assets will be shared around. So I think that initial use cases are going to be, let's say either a loyalty program for multiple companies that use it together, or something which we see as a very big use case in the future is airline miles programs. So airline miles programs basically depend on 10, 20, 50 companies collaborating on a single token airline mile, which represents certain value. So you have the hotels, you have all of these things. A very interesting, I think, benefit to them would be to offload this infrastructure to an open protocol. Now, it remains to be seen whether this is a viable business model, but I think we're moving in this direction for businesses. And one thing just to add to this, I mean, if a business is going to add blockchain, you don't have to convince them. If they're not gonna add blockchain, you can't convince them. So the idea of this is that for businesses who actually decide to implement blockchain, whatever their use case might be, maybe we are handling trivial use cases now that don't get handled, whatever their use case might be, let's make it simple for them to do it. Let's make all of these interesting things that crypto offers simple to consume. Yeah, we have.
Thank you for the presentation. Okay. Thank you, Mislav, for the presentation. I apologize if I get something wrong, but I'm just a lawyer, you know. So can you comment your idea in compare to, for example, the approach of the Coinbase DApp application wallet to communicate with Web3?
Well, I mean, to be fully transparent, I haven't really used Coinbase that much at all, including their DApp applications.
That is new product. I think that they launched it last week.
So what this idea is, it's basically the idea that you can put arbitrary execution of blockchain transactions, pack it in a web2 friendly SDK, and have somebody else take care of communicating with the wallet, doing the state management, doing all these complicated things. So let's say when you're building a web3 application, you usually spend a lot of time initially in the beginning setting up like the scaffolding, which is like setting up queuing of transactions, setting up wallets, interactions, setting up all of these handlers. Usually if you're an agency or you're a bigger crypto company, you reuse these things all over again so they become zero hassle. You can do it like this. You can just create new Web3 apps. But we need to think about and be cognizant of, let's say, agencies and companies which have never done a Web3 application before. And for them, it's not a simple thing as just, oh yeah, I just need to use a Web3 provider and then I'll have access to like 50 wallets, because they don't even know what a Web3 provider is. So the idea here is that it would be just transaction.execute and somebody else would take care of it, like this application. And then all they would get back is the result. Okay, this transaction was successful. Okay, this person has 500 of your loyalty tokens. This person is the owner of this NFT, whatever. So whatever result you are querying, you would get it as an API request instead of just going and directly handling the blockchain data itself. It's quite spicy in here. No, I'm not thirsty. I'm just.
So what is the first blockchain that you're supporting, and do you have any plans for adding additional blockchains to support?
So in this case, this application that works right now works as a test use case. You can use it to verify certain things and send transactions. But initially at rollout, this should support all EVM chains because the back logic is essentially the same. So I'd say, like Ethereum, Polygon, Aurora, or Moonbeam, all these EVM chains, I think they'd work perfectly fine. And even like support for the other blockchains, the cool thing is that adding support for a new blockchain would be just as simple as like building a basic dApp on that blockchain. So I think the extensibility options are quite interesting, but it remains to be seen. Building for other blockchains is cool in crypto because we like to experiment, and there are potential very good projects that might take over in the next few years or however much. When working with, let's say, non-experts, it's probably best to stick with EVM because that's where basically everything is happening for them. So yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for your time. I'm going to go and stand. Yeah. I'll go and stand under an air conditioning, so I'll be chilling if anyone needs me.